Thank you for joining me. I'm going to get right to the point because most planners think they have heard this before. Most planners think they understand what sustainability at an event means. They assume it means recycling bins, messy waste sorting programs, and added work with few benefits. Under the existing guidance, they wouldn't be wrong. Not because of anything they did, but because the way we integrate sustainability at an event adds programs and work to an already busy process. And it doesn't have to be this way. During this webinar, we're going to walk through how we got here, why sustainability feels so challenging, and a better process to help event planners meet rising stakeholder expectations. By the end, you're going to think about sustainability in your events in a completely new way, one that doesn't add more work and actually proves the work you're already doing is low impact. Stick with me as we move past the current practices and provide a better way to view sustainability and event management. In 2024, Conference Direct found that only 15% of events measure their environmental impacts. That number should shock everyone. Sustainable event guidance has existed for more than 20 years. So the first question we need to ask is, why is measurement so low, despite extensive guidance available to planners? Over 70% of planners believe in climate change. Certifications have been created, conferences have been convened, serious efforts are being made to address the impacts of the events industry. And only 15% measure their impacts? Why? According to current guidance, organizers need to create a special green team focused on environmental, social, and governance issues. This team runs in parallel with the main planning team. They set their own scope, identify impact areas, and determine what to implement across the ESG spectrum. Once the goals and plan are in place, the Green Team communicates them to all stakeholders, hosts collaboration meetings with key suppliers, and asks attendees to participate in these efforts. The front of the process is extensive. However, when an organizer tries to measure their environmental impacts, the process is completely different. While the sustainability process begins during the planning phase, the reporting process begins after the event. Typically, the venue is asked to calculate the total event-level activity and provides metrics for energy use, water use, and waste volumes for the time the event was in the venue. This cannot be completed until the event is over, which takes 6 to 8 weeks based on supplier practices. When it finally arrives, teams get a report from the venue detailing the total volume of waste, the total energy use, and the total water consumption. These numbers seem comprehensive, making planners think the reporting model is solid, but that's the issue. These data points are actually built on industry averages, estimates, and assumptions that culminate in incredibly misleading data being presented as comprehensive information. What seems like solid data provides no breakdown, no sources, and no boundaries. Event teams get a series of numbers from each venue, and teams are told to use these numbers to reduce the event's environmental impacts. The specific implementation measures are up to each team, on top of their existing workload. Even for the best planning teams, this reporting process has proven to be a major issue. So here's what I want you to understand. The problem isn't your effort. The problem is the measurement model. This matters to you for 3 reasons. 1, you can't prove your sustainability work to internal teams or sponsors. You've done all this work, but the numbers don't seem to support the level of effort. 2, you're left defending a number you didn't create and can't explain. Suppliers hand you a report and you're supposed to own it, but you didn't build it, and they aren't numbers of the actual event, so you have no solid starting point. 3, sustainability becomes a confusing obligation rather than a benefit. It feels like something you have to do, driven by numbers outside your control, which makes it a hassle. It becomes a bother, which is where we stand now. It doesn't have to be this way. That's what we're here to fix. But first, we need to understand how we got into our current situation. In the early days of green meeting guidance, eco-friendly planners just wanted to know their energy, water, and waste volumes, so they asked the venues to measure the totals, which was the best option at the time. Once planners received this data, Programs were built to reduce those totals for the next event. Sounds logical, right? But here's the critical mistake. The industry adopted what's called output-based measurement. Simple idea. Measure the total outputs, energy used, water consumed, waste generated, and then try to reduce them. But here's the issue. Output-based measurement doesn't tell you where those outputs are generated. It just tells you the total. And when you don't know who caused them, you can't fix the root cause, which is exactly what has happened with events. The current reporting model misattributes impacts of other stakeholders to the event organizer because of the output-based measurement model. Here's what this looks like in practice. An organizer asks the venue to provide event-level energy usage data. The venue tracks the total and tells the planner, your event used 500,000 kilowatt hours, with no context of where the energy was consumed or who is responsible. So when the planner is told to reduce electricity by 20%, what are they actually supposed to do? The planner can't redesign the building or ban exhibitors from using energy. This same pattern happens with water and waste. The venue reports total consumption. The planner is told to reduce it. The venue reports total waste. The planner is told to divert it. But the planner doesn't control the venue's trash infrastructure, compactor, or hauling contracts. The venue does. This model was already getting confusing based on the misattribution. Then the climate crisis became our priority, and that structure was applied to emissions. Organizers were held responsible for the travel emissions of thousands of attendees, but organizers don't control where attendees come from or how they travel. The organization sending the attendee does. This is where the most damage has been done to the events industry. When the environmentalists tabulated the global emissions from all the attendees converging on a single location and then misattributed it to the organizer, it made the event look outrageously damaging to the environment. This is where we are today. Reports claim 85% of an event's emissions are caused by attendee travel, and yet the organizer is held responsible for reducing them. There are recommendations for systemic changes to the events industry that can be traced directly back to the misattribution of emissions data, which holds organizers responsible for every source of impact at the event, even things that are clearly outside their control. Now, when understanding the reporting from this perspective, the numbers make sense. 20 years of guidance, and only 15% measure this complex web of emissions and impact data because of the misattribution issues we just established. Planners heard the guidance and are doing their best, but they can't properly measure energy use, water consumption, waste generation, and emission sources that are outside their control, using post-event estimated data, no matter how much pressure is on them to do so. Sustainability feels endless because it is. The scope includes every environmental impact and emission source from every stakeholder, with planners asked to design reduction efforts based on potential savings with the hope that the venue data will validate their efforts. Despite years of efforts, these adoption issues have continued to grow, despite repeated attempts to address them. Several years ago, industry leaders noticed the same lack of adoption. As we came out of the pandemic, new priority action areas were released to focus our attention and resources on the most pressing issue of our time, the climate emergency, and to end the open concept of sustainable event planning. In 2021, the Net Zero Carbon Events Roadmap was launched at the UN COP26 summit. It was created at the highest levels of environmental and event leadership to support the IPCC goal of reducing emissions 50% by 2030. The NZCE has 5 action areas: energy, materials, food, supply chains, and transportation. That's it. Most planners don't realize this occurred and still think sustainability means addressing everything else under the SDG umbrella, but that is no longer the case. However, while the leadership updated the guidance, the critical underlying issue still existed: the post-event, venue-provided data and reporting structure. More on that in a second. While the NZCE simplifies what planners are asked to address, it is designed at a global level for all types of events and can still be complex to those unfamiliar with carbon emissions language. This is where we come in. We streamline the 5 priority action areas even further to tighten the process for busy planners and map the 5 areas to the main emission sources in the US, per the Environmental Protection Agency, consolidating them into 3 operational pillars: energy consumption, production and materials, travel and transportation. These 3 pillars map directly to what a planner controls, and they get at the heart of the climate crisis, targeting the 3 leading emission sources and nothing else. They're measurable and they're actionable. This is the foundation for everything that comes next. When using these new action areas, something becomes clear. You are already a sustainability leader. Yes, you. You're already a sustainability expert. You might not think of yourself that way, but you are. It's not your fault that you can't see it, or that sustainability seems frustrating. It's not the venue's fault either. It's the measurement model that we discussed. Rather than waiting for the event to be over and measuring the totals, a better model would measure the event itself, the parts the planner actually controls, and would leave the venue's infrastructure out of it. That's how we fix this problem, and that's what we're going to show you next. Because once we fix the measurement model, all the efforts of global stakeholders will finally fall into place. Now, rather than starting with a special green team, let's take these 3 topics one at a time to understand them and the standard event planning process. When measuring the electricity consumption at your event, major destinations and venues are increasingly adopting renewable energy. While previous programs advised conservation efforts, like shutting down lights, escalators, and HVAC systems, more modern approaches have been developed. When generated from clean, renewable sources, events are not limited to reduction guidance or a lessened experience because of sustainability regulations. Instead, planners can host energy-intensive events in amazing locations as long as they are powered by renewable energy. By switching to an input-based reporting model that identifies the equipment, usage schedules, and power sources, we can show that your electricity needs were provided with 0 emissions. Now think about the spaces and production materials you select for the event. Most venues provide basic in-house equipment, like cocktail tables, banquet rounds, and stackable chairs. All of these materials are stored on-site and are reused hundreds of times. Planners contract a specific space for a few days, use the in-house equipment, and then these items are put away to be used again on another event the following week. This is the definition of circularity, and it is completely overlooked by the output-based model. This is the tip of the iceberg. Venues also have exclusive suppliers and lists of preferred vendors who provide a range of rented and circulated resources sourced within the host destination. Events are routinely seen as being wasteful, but when planning an event, the audiovisual equipment is typically rented, furniture is rented, and staging is reused. There are modular booth walls and reused pipe and drape that are such a standard part of an event design that planners don't think of them as being green or sustainable, but that's exactly what they are. We focused so much on reducing bad decisions that we completely overlook the good ones. You don't think of this equipment as a sustainability program because they aren't. They are the sustainable choices you make rather than wasteful ones. Every time you select cloth drape instead of plastic disposables, it is a sustainable choice. Every time you reuse a banner instead of producing a new one, and every time something is rented or reused, you make a sustainable choice. It's time those choices got recognized for what they are: sustainable. Lastly, think about your travel, supply chains, and sourcing footprint. While environmental guidance suggests a planner can simply select a sustainable supplier, many venues have exclusive providers for key industry services, like electrical and catering, who provide materials that are stored in the venue. These items have no sourcing footprint, and they are used on a variety of clients over many years. This exclusive supplier network operates within each major destination, with a wide range of rented or reused equipment. Most of these suppliers are located in the host destination, well within the 100-mile range defined as locally sourced, and yet none of it is recognized as such. Take your event menu, for example. When an event is hosted in the Pacific Northwest or the Gulf Coast, planners routinely highlight local, seasonal, and regional food specialties, which is half the fun of hosting business events in new locations, to try new foods and learn about new cultures. Everything about business events is sustainable. Your event work is sustainable, but the recognition is invisible, not because you're not doing it, but because it's not seen in the right context and doesn't get measured using output-based reporting. That's what we change. To fix this, we begin our process using the Event Industry Council definition of a business event. This definition comes from the EIC Economic Impact on the U.S. Economy report to show the economic power of the industry and has nothing to do with sustainability. This definition helps quantify the economic scope of an event, and it is the perfect framework to set the environmental scope as well. This is a critical piece to prevent scope creep and ensure planners only address what they can control. This is how the planning process actually works, one contracted space at a time. And this is where the scope of an event sustainability assessment needs to begin. To make sustainability reporting beneficial and not a post-event summary, we track your design documents during the planning phase, copied on each new invoice, report, and design drawing to calculate and adjust your carbon footprint in real time. Traditional reports require a 6 to 8 week delay, have estimates, averages, and calculated data from the venues, and they are too late to make a meaningful impact. Planners need an actionable data management system that provides the full scope of your event operations and their relative environmental footprint, while it is still early enough to adjust and lower. With the clear scope set by the EIC, measuring the 3 emissions pillars for the EPA and the NZCE, the process becomes clear. We switch to an input-based reporting model like the LEAD system, and with this switch, everything changes. For energy, we measure everything in a standard power plan for an event. If you controlled it and it consumed energy, we track it. For materials, our process is easy. We track everything that goes into a contracted venue space, not what comes out as waste. For transportation, we measure how everything and everyone under the direct contract of the organizer move to the event, including all electrical and production materials, all food, freight, presenters, entertainers, planning staff, volunteers, and the official event organizers. The event is measured by what the organizer controls, not what the venue provides after the fact. That's how you actually drive change, and it's how industry leaders have operated in other sectors for decades. So here's what this means for you as a planner. Think about your energy usage. How much energy was consumed by the equipment you directly control? Not the venue lights, not the HVAC systems. What did you install at the event, and how was the energy sourced? Think about the materials in one space. How much is reused equipment provided by the venue, or rented equipment that aligns with the circular economy, versus the volume made of new raw materials requiring production? Think about the sourcing of everything in one event space. Were the chairs and tables sourced inside the venue with zero transportation emissions? Were they sourced from a local supplier? Or was the equipment shipped cross-country because of a special design or material? The final step in our process is critically important to help planners host zero-emission events, a formal definition. The Zero Waste International Alliance identifies 90% as the threshold for zero, not 100%. That is an important clarification, as it helps keep expectations realistic and is a long-established benchmark for demonstrating a high level of achievement in sustainable event operations. Green Analytics applies this logic to emissions, requiring events to prove that 90% of the energy is sourced from renewable sources, 90% of the materials are produced from circular resources, and 90% of the food, equipment, and personnel come from the local area, or are transported using low-emission methods to be considered a zero-emission event today, not in 2030. Here's what I want you to remember. With input-based reporting and a clear scope of each contracted event space, each of these decisions can now be captured, and we can reimagine the sustainable event report. The events industry is already sustainable. It's hosting thousands of events every day, making smart decisions about materials, energy, transportation, and food. It's doing the work. Right now, the industry is viewed as an environmental burden that needs to be minimized, but that's backwards. The question isn't how bad the event is for the environment. The question to start with should be, how sustainable is your event? You're already making sustainable choices. The problem was never your effort. The problem was that those choices didn't get measured. Now, for the first time, they will be. Green analytics exists for you to make your sustainability work visible and to give you the language and the numbers to defend it. Business events are sustainable, and it's our mission to prove it. We look forward to hearing from you as we fix the reputation of this vital industry and lead the way to a net zero world by 2050. Thank you.